Okay, first up is Lyndon, and yeah, I think this looks good. Um, I think yeah, there's some good thought put into this. I think that the legs could use, maybe the torso and legs could use a little bit more shape. The lines are kind of very parallel and straight. Maybe, you know, giving this a little bit more shape, or more to the thigh, a bit more of a sense of a knee. So it's just a little too, if you're going cartoony, think of uh, some rounder shapes maybe. There's sort of typical pear-shaped characters, and as an example, but I'm not suggesting you need to do that for this guy, but um, that's just one thing you could do. Or maybe the legs wider on top, it gets narrower towards the bottom, or maybe you see a little bit of like kind of calf and ankle, or a little bit more of a sense of a knee. So I think you could work on especially the legs and maybe this sort of torso area. A large head and short arms can make some things challenging with the character. Not everything, and a lot of cartoon characters are like that. But for example, he might not be able to reach to scratch the top of his head, for example, or do a handstand or something. So just be aware there's certain limitations with that. The hands look particularly small, so you might try going a little bigger on that. The front and side seem to match pretty well. But again, yeah, I mean, you can see a little bit more shape to the legs on the side, but again, I think you could add more shape. The feet are quite small. You might try going a little bigger on those as well. So it's a good stylized character. Good job matching the front and side. I like that you've added some detail to the hair. So all in all, I think this could work well. I just think you could refine your shape some, make it a little bit more appealing. Okay, this is Craig, and yeah, just really nice style to this character. It's got clear and interesting shapes, and the different body parts, um, and yeah, kind of a fun head. I think that the head kind of is planted right on the body without the neck, at least in this view. Let's see, and pretty much in that view. So I find that difficult to work with. So you might consider adding a little bit more of a neck. Um, I think it's okay to have a little bit of a bend in the legs, but usually I did them a little bit more straight, up and down. Maybe just a very subtle bend in the knee, but not quite so much. And again, good shapes to the face. I think that I saw that you've added a little bit of length to the leg is good. And I think that it's really helpful to add some definition to the knee, kind of have some separation between the thigh, and the calf, like the top of the half of the leg and the bottom, and a somewhat defined knee, instead of the legs just being sort of a tube. It can help a lot with your sort of joint placement and how it bends. I know that in the front view you do have a bend. I mean, excuse me, in the side view you do have a bend to them, but just some kind of definition of the knee. And I guess the same would go for the arms. It's sort of like, where do I put the elbow? Is it where that line is? And if so, is that forearm really short? To me, to me it looks like it is. So I don't. You don't necessarily have to make the arms longer, but I might again separate the forearm and the bicep, like the two halves of the arm, and then again give the elbow a little bit more definition. Yeah, again I can see the bend in the knee here, which is good, but just making sure these are sort of two distinct shapes, the top half and the bottom half. The feet are tiny, which is okay, but it's maybe go a little bigger on those. And for the hands, you might want to do a top view just straight down on the hand, just to have something to work from, because there isn't much detail in this drawing on the hand. But overall, this is really good. It's got a great style. It seems like something that would translate well into 3D, so I think you're going to have a good time with this character. I think it should work well. This is Flora, and yeah, really nice drawing here. Just a good sense of anatomy, and very clear but simple shapes. Yeah, I think this could be great. What you've got going on here. Is she wearing kind of like a leotard or something? I guess so. Yeah, yeah, that should be all right. You might build some of those pieces separately, or it could be one seamless thing. Either way. Yeah, interesting proportions. Some. This is kind of what I've talked about in some of the other ones. Is there's a clear difference between the top half and the bottom half of the leg, and some definition of the knee. She looks a little knock knee, like the knees are pointing inwards. So I would try to avoid that. And yeah, really good profile as well. Good proportions. And then clear, simple lines to work from. So I don't have much to change on this. I mean, I guess the only thing to know about is the way I'm teaching modeling in this class is I'm not actually doing the body underneath, but I'm actually doing like the pants as one model, the shirt as another model, the hands and a little bit of the forearm as a model. So if you wanted to clothe her a little bit more, like instead of just having the legs there, put some pants on her, a pair of jeans, whatever. You might think about that. But I think you'll be able to apply those techniques to this model too. But it's just something you might consider. Um, but yeah, I mean it's great. It's really good drawing. So it's so symmetrical and clean, and a lot of kind of appeal and character to it. Good shapes, really nice work. Next up is Idania, and overall, I think a pretty good character design. It is kind of leaning to one side quite a lot, and you might do just another pass at this where you get everything kind of nice and symmetrical and straightened out. I mean, we will just model one half and mirror it, so the most important thing is to get just one half looking really right, but it's best to do the whole drawing and again get this looking symmetrical and straight. Again, good definition on the different body parts like the legs and feet, forearms, nice sense of shoulders and chest there. It's really it's got some clear shapes and anatomy to it. I think that's helpful. You may want to do a sketch of the hands from the top or use photo reference of the hands from the top to model those. I think the face could use a little bit more just detail definition, maybe a couple other sketches and studies of the face to just really define what that's going to look like. I think it's a little rough and quick, so maybe some details of the face would be helpful. Um, yeah, so those are the main things. I think you've got the basic shapes right, but just get it, maybe just kind of cleaning it up is the main thing. Starting with this and do a much cleaned up, straighter version of it. I think you may have lost some of the nice. When I look at kind of the shapes of the calves here and the thigh muscles, they're pretty bulky and defined, and the chest and shoulders I'm really seeing here. But on this one, everything seems to have kind of slimmed out and lost some of its mass. I mean, I'm seeing that calf really well, but the thigh looks like it's sort of thinned out. There's not really much of a butt here. You could add a butt, maybe a little bit more chest, just to make sure the front and the side are kind of even in the way that they're designed. But yeah, good work. Okay, this is Josh, and yeah, I like the kind of overall look to this. I think you feel like there's some story behind the character, like it's in some particular world. The kind of hat he has make you think he's some sort of pilot, along with the fingerless gloves he's wearing. Where I think that it needs work is just the kind of the overall body and leg shapes just looks a little odd. It's sort of lacking, a sense of, this kind of arc here is weird. I think you want like a clearer leg, getting like thigh, calf, knee, get all those things sort of broken down. Um, just kind of fooling around in Photoshop, but um, kind of getting a thigh shape, a knee, kind of a calf shape here, and then you can kind of sort of, it doesn't have to be super form-fitting, but you could kind of get the legs to kind of follow those shapes a little bit more as you design this, that you kind of pay attention to that, you know, those shapes. So getting a sense of these different shapes in there, and then again here, think about the various. Not doing a great job there, but the various shapes here. As you do this, and then kind of form the thing around it. And I think one thing here is that you want a little bit more shoulder, and again you can think of the chest. Anyways, that looks a bit like a mess, but I think conceptually, get in there and think about the various body shapes and then form that around it, and then you can kind of go and sort of start cleaning this up a little bit, as you refine it, and you kind of find your line here. And then do the same on the other side. And yeah, this torso shape I think needs some work as well. So yeah, just work on the shape. The body shapes was the main thing. There is a little bit more going on this side, which is good. There's a little bit more, clarity of the shape here. And that's helpful. I think you could give him a bit more of a nose. Kind of think about how that nose enters the face there some. But yeah, overall good job. I think just work on those limb and torso shapes. This is Gwendolyn, and yeah, really nice drawing. Yeah, good sense of anatomy and the different body shapes, and I think that's going to work really well for you. I would place the legs so that they're about hips width apart, and have a gap between the legs so they're not sort of seamed together like that, because that's kind of hard to model the shapes, and then later it's going to be hard to rig. But really great drawing. I mean, really good, clear body shapes everywhere. It's a consistent front and side. I think this could work quite well. When the arm's up like this, I think you'll see a little bit more shoulder here. Yeah, and this is just, I think this is the same thing, it's just a little closer up. So yeah, a little bit more shoulder. Another thing, you might want to either draw a reference of the hands from the top or find some photo reference of a hand from the top to help you model those hands. But I think I would say the main thing would be getting those legs a little bit apart, and I also think this is a nice 3/4 view of the head, and I think that's really helpful, but like a nice close-up of the head and face would be helpful. You might want to do a sort of an x-ray sketch from the side view where we can see the head shape without the hair, and just any more kind of head close-ups that would help you flesh out the shapes, because this is it's just sort of the mere suggestion of a nose there, and it's a little hard to imagine how that's gonna translate into 3D. So it's just that helps a little bit, but again we lose this here, and how do the eyes come in and that kind of stuff. So having some more head detail, maybe do a front and side without the hair and a little closer up, that would probably help you out. But overall, very good drawings, and the design should work well. This is Fernanda, and it's really great how stylized this character is. I think that'll be fun to work with. That said, even though I know you're going for a very linear form, I would say find some ways to kind of define the elbow, forearm, bicep, shoulder, like and I get you're going for a very linear look, but even with that, I think even if it's very subtle, just a sense of where the joints are, where the different body parts are. Same with the legs, some differentiation between hips, knee, and ankle. Also, keep that gap between the legs, so that just spread the feet out. So it's sort of hips width apart. I do see it's wider at the top, narrow at the bottom. That's good. But again, some kind of hint of a knee. I think you could maintain the integrity of the very angular form and still do all that stuff. And again, yeah, that matches well. Um, and again, define the knee. Where do the hips end? Where's the kind of the bottom of the torso? And you might want to give him a little bit more shoulders. But yeah, I like how symmetrical it is. I like the distorted character, the proportions, and it's got some appeal to it. So I think it'll work well. A nice head shape. Um, it should be fun to work with. Good work on that. Okay, this is Jeffrey, and yeah, certainly got a lot of character to it, and kind of extremely distorted proportions, which is interesting. Giant long arms and very short legs. There are a couple issues with this, though, which is first of all, you shouldn't model your character kind of hunched over. You should model them straight up and down, so where you're standing up straight. And I can see that you've kind of roughed in the shape of the thigh here, and so it should be standing up. I mean, you can have a little bit of a hint of a bend in the knee, but that's a very steep bend, and then the whole thing's leaning forward. And generally, you want to do your character upright. Also, the arms are hanging down here, and they're to the side here, so you don't even necessarily have to draw the arms in this view. You can just kind of indicate where the shoulder extends out from. The other thing is I recommend staying away from these kind of skirts or kilts or whatever it is, because to really get that to move well, you need to do a class simulation, and that's just simply outside of the scope of this class. There's no way we're going to have the time or bandwidth or anything to do that and get that working right. So it's possible to do a skirt. It's possible to get it to move with the legs. It'll look a little kind of rubbery and stretchy, and it'd be especially problematic if the legs kind of swing far apart, like a long running stride or a kick up in the air. Those kinds of extreme leg movements, you're going to have more extreme problems with how that binds to the character. So yeah, if you can see your way clear to doing a design where it doesn't have a skirt, you're going to have a better time of it. And then yeah, like straighten them out. But overall, it's good. I mean, it's got a lot of character to it. I kind of feel like this is looking a little, I don't know, a little bit too kind of perfectly cylindrical. Maybe you can modify that a little bit. The sort of t-shirt, the short sleeve here, and I mean, I guess if he's standing up straight, he won't be so extremely different in proportion, but I think you're really making it harder on yourself by having him hunched over, because here it looks like just a guy with really short legs, and it's hard to know how the foreshortening is happening in the front view when you do this, and we're going to be modeling in the orthographic view, meaning we're going to be looking at it straight on. So you really don't want to have that bend in there. So yeah, the biggest thing is straightening them out, and I think some of these other proportion issues will kind of be solved at that. The feet look very thin. I don't know if that was a stylistic choice, but maybe you want to make them a bit thicker. And I'm not sure this matches up front and side, the different facial features. So you might want to put facial features. You might want to put horizontal guidelines in there. Top and bottom of the nose, top and bottom of eyes, where the lips are, where the chin is, just to make sure everything lines up in the front and side, because it just looks like a different face from the front and side. When I look at I don't know, kind of the length of the nose as it goes from the middle of the eyes down. Could be wrong, but it does indeed look like that. Just going to draw some lines here. Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, that should be the middle of his eyes, and look, it's above his eyebrows. Um, let's say bottom of the chin. So I guess it's not like as far off as I thought it is, but it is clearly off. Um, yeah, that top is at the same point. So, anyways, yeah, get those in, just lightly sketched on there to help you out. So this is it looks like you're going for obviously an astronaut suit. I think the drawing looks very rough and sketchy to me. I don't I if anything, I would say a photo is going to be more useful than this drawing. The hands aren't really rendered well, and it's not in the sort of T-pose position, front and side, that we need. And I guess what I'm concerned about is the way the spacesuit is sort of defined by that kind of wrinkly surface and a lot of detail with little kind of mechanisms attached to it. I don't know. I think that what I would say is a spacesuit is okay, except that I'd really like to see you, again, T-pose front and side, and do a simplified, stylized spacesuit that could still be based on a real one, but really simplify the shape so that it still reads a spacesuit, but it's not trying to. I'm guessing all these little lines are supposed to be wrinkles, but they're not really well placed or thought out, and I'm concerned that trying to do that realistically, like you could spend a whole term just modeling the spacesuit and nothing else, you know, to get it really right. So also, yeah, you really should have a character's face, and so that means designing the face from the front and side as well. So I really think you need to take another pass at this one. T-pose, front and side, simplified, stylized, and get a face in there. Okay, this is Catherine. It's good that you have good clean shapes and good anatomy. Normally with a T-pose, the arms would either be straight out to the side, or you can do it a kind of a 45 degree diagonal, but they wouldn't be quite at the side like this normally. And also, obviously, there's no facial detail in the front. You definitely need a face design. The other thing is I would recommend doing a clothed character. The way I'm going to be demonstrating in this course is I'll have uh, we'll model the pants and we'll model the shirt and we'll model the hands, we'll model the head, and they'll all be kind of separate pieces you can put together. And I'm not saying it has to be that way, but since that's how it's taught, I think you'll have better luck in this course. You'll have a better experience if you have a clothed character or shirt, pants, or something like that, shoes. So consider doing that, and obviously you need a face design. So I think this one needs some more work. Arms out to the side, but the basic anatomy looks right. The proportions are good. Um, I just think, yeah, clothed face, arms out to the side. Those are really the main things. So definitely take another pass at this and continue working on it. But I like that it's built on good clean lines and good anatomy, and that's really an important start. And actually, it's almost like you could just make another layer in Photoshop. Or I don't know if this looks digital to me. I don't know if it's hand drawn. I'm pretty sure it's digital anyway. So yeah, if it's digital, you can just make another layer in Photoshop and just kind of draw the clothing right on top of this, and you already have a really good foundation on the anatomy. So it'll be a good start. This is Taylor, and yeah, you've got some good basic shapes in there. I think there's some asymmetry, but I mean, we're only going to be modeling one half and mirroring it anyways. But I think a little bit more of a shoulder here could help, and the hands could just get some more detail in the hand shape, although you might want to do the hands from above because we'll be more or less modeling it from above. I think that if you want to get other reference for the face, whether it's photo reference or like another hand drawn face, that could always be a good idea. Long hair is something I generally like to steer away from because to get it to move well, you'd have to do simulation, hair simulation. That's out of the scope of this class. It's not really possible. So if we can kind of give the character a haircut, that would be a good idea. Yeah, the look of the face in the front of this versus the side kind of looks like a different face. Make sure everything's lining up, height of eyes, height of chin, by kind of putting horizontal guidelines to along the kind of little landmarks, top, bottom of nose, bottom of chins, where the lips are, where the eyes are, eyebrows, and because right now, well, it's hard to tell, kind of passing back and forth like this, but I'm not sure that those line up right. She looks like she's on her tiptoes. Make sure those feet are flat on the ground, unless you're going to put her in shoes, and in that case, just do the shoes. Um, so overall, I think the character could work. I think the face in particular needs work. And you mentioned you're struggling with drawing noses and those kinds of things. So if you can find some other reference for, let me, whether it's photo reference or another character reference, a drawn character reference where you like the look of the facial features, I think that's a really good idea. And I think work on the hands, clean that up. I think some of the shapes, like its torso shape, is a little bit amorphous here from the front and side. It looks kind of, here there's sort of a sense of like breasts underneath the shirt, but you kind of, here it looks like sort of a block, so you might want to define that a little bit more. Um, Between the hair and the neck, it's a little, I guess those are the lines of the neck, so maybe a little more formation on the neck. Um, you might want to do, just sort of sketch the shape of the head underneath the hair, just because you want to have those lines to follow when you're doing your model. And again, shorter hair. So overall, I think it could work. I think it's pretty decent. I think the face is the big thing that needs more attention.